Funding for this program is provided by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of the complete line of Cajun King seafood seasoning mixes and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Louisiana. Hello, I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. We're real proud of our people, places, and food, and I'd like for you to know a little bit more about it. So join me and some of my friends as we visit the historical food towns of this state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana. Everybody, and welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, and I again want to thank you for visiting with me as we look for those great food towns of Louisiana. Today we're going to the central part of our state. We're going to Rapides Parish and a little bit up to Grants Parish, where we're going to go to the towns of Cheneyville, Bunkie, and Fishville, Louisiana. I got to tell you about Fishville. But first, let me tell you about Bunkie. Here we are right at Griffin's Antiques in the town of Bunkie. This town was named Bunkie by Mr. Haas in the late 1800s because his daughter had a little monkey that she couldn't call Monkey, so she called it Bunkie. And that was her nickname, and he named the town after her. This is in the Griffin Antique Store, and there's great furniture and glassware. But one of the things that impressed me most about this particular store was all of the great stained glass that came in from, most of it imported. A lot of the antiques in this store are Louisiana antiques, early Louisiana, but a lot of imports. This is the Bunkie Train Depot, and again, early 1800s. The Epps House, a little plantation home, and very important story here. There was a slave who lived there who wrote a book, 12 Years a Slave, about his life. This is the Bubenzer House right there outside of Cheneyville. Just great example of early Louisiana architecture. And this is Walnut Grove, a black top driveway right through the center of those beautiful walnut trees. And this little house was built in 1836 and today owned by the McGowan family right outside of Bunkie. This is Cheneyville, another little town in Rapides Parish, right up the road from Bunkie. And again, a lot of antique stores. All of these towns are really starting to salvage and display the great artifacts of years gone by. And visitors are coming in by the thousands to see all of these beautiful antiques and buy, naturally, all of those that's on display. This is Lloyd's Hall, one of my most favorite of all plantation homes in Louisiana. Lloyd's Hall was actually in ruins, and cows were living in the hallway of this home when the Fitzgerald family came in and purchased it. One of the greatest examples of plasterwork. Look at this gorgeous plasterwork on the ceiling of Lloyd's Hall right outside of Cheneyville on Bayou Barf. Just great furniture in this home, beautiful colors, and the landscape around this house is just gorgeous. This is a little bed and breakfast right off to the side of Lloyd's Hall. 2 bedrooms, beautiful fireplace. What a great little bed and breakfast. The outdoor kitchen behind the main house, which was typical of plantation homes, and a wonderful herb garden right around this big old sugar kettle that you see there. Magnificent homes, but more importantly, little bitty Louisiana towns that have so much to share with the rest of the nation. I get excited just thinking about it. And my guest in the kitchen today is going to be Jean Owens. And Jean and her mother owns a wonderful little herb farm, Ridgeway Herbs, in Fishville, Louisiana, which is outside of Alexandria, about 15 miles. And if you want to spend a great day, that's the place to spend it, right there at Ridgeway. And she's going to come. We're going to talk about herbs and herb growing and all the things you ever wanted to know about herbs and spices. That's what we're going to also talk about in the kitchen before she gets here. And I want you to look at this little box I have in my hand. This is a spice box, and you're going to notice that right on the front of this box is a little lock, because herbs and spices were so important in early cooking and so expensive that they had to lock them up in the kitchen. And then the little cans inside, I've got to share this with you. There's the name of all the spices right on top of the box. But just to make sure that nobody would get into the kitchen and steal a little bit of this spice. The little boxes had squeaker tops on them so that when somebody tried to open them, they would squeak and let somebody know that they were getting into the herbs. A little bitty piece of nostalgia here, and since we're cooking with herbs and spice, so important in Louisiana, I had to share that with you. I found that, in fact, in one of those antique stores in Cheneyville. Well, in central Louisiana, there's a lot of cotton farms. It's a big cotton industry there, even today, but also cattle. So one of the things I want to share with you in our herb cooking kitchen today is a little bit beef. And what kind of beef I want to cook? Well, let's talk about Osso Buco. Take a look down in this wonderful big bowl I have here. Osso Buco is actually the shank from the knee to the ankle of veal or lamb or whatever, but it's always got a really nice piece of meat. It's a little bit tough, so people tend to stay away from it. It's very economical, but take a look at the meat around this nice center bone. Osso Buco actually literally means long bone, and that's that shank bone. But look at this nice white veal right around the center. Imagine how nice this is going to be when we cook it with fine herbs. And in the bowl, we have carrots, tomatoes, bell pepper, onions, celery, of course, any kind of mushrooms you want to use, but also herbs. I've got some nice garlic chives here, and these have got just wonderful garlic flavor to them. I've got chervil and tarragon, all kind of great herbs. You can use any one that you would like into the bowl, but I'm going to crank my fire up here, and we're going to go to cooking some of them. Osso Buco, I'll put a little bit oil, again, use whatever oil you would like into the skillet, and take the Osso Buco, or the little veal shanks, and you want to dust them in just a little bit flour. You don't want to put an egg wash, or as I say sometimes, a scrambled egg wash. Shake off all that excess flour because you just want to coat it nicely. You don't want to put a big heavy batter on the outside of your veal shanks. Do about 2 or 3 of them and get that really nice coating. You can season the flour in any way that you would want. You could put some cracked pepper, but since I'm putting a lot of fine herbs into this dish today, I don't want to put a lot of foreign spice. I'm going to let all those herbs flavor the dish naturally. So I'm going to put the shanks right down into my oil, saute them for just a second. What I want to do is to seal the juices into the meat. That's the most important thing about the Osso Buco because it does tend to be just a little bit tough on the onset of putting it into the pan, so you must slowly braise Osso Buco. But in order to keep the juices on the inside, you want to dust them and then quickly saute them until they get nice and brown, turning them once or twice to seal in those natural juices. Once that's done, let's assume that we've sauteed these for about 10 minutes or so until they just kind of white it out, look just like that. I'll turn them over. And again, I'm using a vegetable oil here, but hey, use olive oil. This is a really nice Italian dish. Great olive oil will work here. And into that, let me get some more of my good flavors out of my bowl here. I'm going to put some carrots down into it, just like this, some nice tomatoes. Got to get your hands all into these spices and flavorings. Some onions, naturally. Put some good onions around that. And then the mushrooms. And then the herbs. And I'm going to just take these garlic chives and I'm going to break them right down into the saute pan, right on top of the Osso Buco. I'm going to take some of this nice chervil, again, break it right down into the pan like that. And then, of course, I can put any kind of herbs I would like. I could put oregano, I could put just whatever I feel like. Again, move this out. And once all of the herbs saute into the pan like this, I would deglaze with just a little touch of red wine or sherry, whichever you would like. I'll leave the wine out. Put a little bit down in there like that. Boy, look at that great red wine flavor. A little of the tomato sauce. And you can make a brown gravy or a white gravy with this if you would like. And then to thin it out, I'm going to use a little tomato juice cocktail. Just a little bit. And I'll spice it with some Louisiana hot sauce. And then I can come back and add whatever flavors I would like. I can put a little bit cracked black pepper into it, a little touch of salt if I wanted to. And then I would take this and put it in a 350-degree oven. I'd put a lid on top of this saute pan, and I'd bake it. I'll move this right out of the way here because I have one already done for you. I would bake it at about 375 for about an hour and a half, covered until it gets really nice and tender. Let me get the one out of the oven here. All right, boy, wait till you see this. Wait till you take a look at this saute pan of Osso Buco. Oh, take a look at that steam coming out of there. If you could smell all of those wonderful herbs coming out of the top of that pan, again, I could come back and garnish it. I'll put a little yellow into it. You know I love that purple cabbage. I'll put a little purple right into the center of that tomato. And then you could always put another little piece of fresh herb right down into the center. Let me garnish with something I didn't even cook it with here, a little rosemary. And serve it right into the bowl like this, into the saute pan, or put it on a nice big platter with some pasta around it. It's going to be really, really nice. And I'll move that right out of the way. Okay, the next herb dish that I want to do for you, boy, you have to take a look at this nice pan here. Take a look at that pan, that big platter of shrimp. This is beautiful white shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico. And you see I have some that's actually head on, these big, big ones right here. This is about a 21, 25 count shrimp right here, 25 count to the pound, white shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico. These have already been peeled. I want to show you what I did. I've peeled them and put my paring knife right down the back here and remove the vein right out of the shrimp, but I keep the little tail portion right on because as the shrimp cooks, this really helps garnish the dish nicely. A lot of times I'll actually create this dish in the shell, almost like barbecued shrimp. I like to kind of cook it in the shell, and you might want to experiment with that sometimes because it gives this dish a really nice presentation. So I'm going to saute these shrimp in a little olive oil with rosemary and garlic. Again, very, very Italian. I've got my old black iron skillet, square one this time. I'll put a little bit of this nice virgin olive oil and kick that flame up, get it nice and hot. And then I would take whole cloves of garlic. You can see down inside of this little platter here in the corner, I've got some nice cloves of garlic. You can use the elephant tool. You can chop it up if you'd like, but I'm going to go ahead and use just the whole little cloves of the smaller garlic because it's got a lot more flavor in my opinion. I'll put it down into the olive oil, and you want to saute the garlic in the olive oil just for a second to try to get that really good garlic flavor into the oil. I can also add, which I'll do, I'm going to put a little touch of chopped garlic, which I've chopped because it's got a lot of natural oil in it, and it'll instantly start to flavor the olive oil. The thing you want to be careful of is that you don't brown the garlic too much because then it'll get bitter. Now I'll add a big handful of this shrimp right down into that, and I'll stir that around just for a second. Now imagine how much garlic flavor these wonderful shrimp are going to pick up just quickly as I throw it down into the olive oil. This is a very, very simple dish that can be created either as an appetizer or an entree, and of course I'm using shrimp, but imagine if you wanted to throw some nice scallops into this saute pan, or some mussels, or oysters for that matter. Any of those good seafood items would work. But hey, use chicken strips, breast of chicken, into the garlic and olive oil. You'll have a really, really nice flavor. Once the shrimp start to turn just a nice little pink, I'm going to take some fresh rosemary. And look how nice and fresh this rosemary is, really nice and full of the rosemary flavored oils. I'm going to put it right down into the pan. Again, people tend to be a little leery of cooking with herbs. They don't quite know what to do with them, but when Jean comes out, we're going to talk a lot about that. Okay, once the rosemary and the garlic comes together, I'm going to add all of these other flavors. I'm going to put a little bit green onions down into it, fresh green onions, a little bit red bell pepper for color, because I have to have that pretty color. I'm going to add just a little touch of the yellow bell pepper, and then some finely diced carrots, and one good bay leaf to it right at the end. Stir that around. Now you may want to come back and deglaze this with a little bit vermouth or a little white wine if you would like. Any of those nice flavors will really complement the shrimp. But the important thing is you don't want to overcook it, so I'm going to turn that fire off just like this. You could add, if you'd like, a little flour and chicken stock to it, but I want the natural flavor of the shrimp, garlic, and olive oil. That's all I'm looking for here. If you wanted to really make a masterpiece out of this dish as an entree, just a little flour into it and put a little bit chicken stock or shrimp stock, and it'll be wonderful. Let me show you how I'm going to serve this. I'm going to put this big thing of shrimp. It's almost a shame to put that big platter of shrimp out of the way. I'm going to take the shrimp and put it right on top of these two nice pieces of toasted bread. Look at this. Now imagine if the shrimp were still in the shell, putting it right on top of here and using the bread to dip up that great garlic butter flavor. Whoo, talk about good. I'm going to put a few of those on there just like that. And I wish you could smell the garlic and rosemary. It's a flavor that's just unbelievable, actually. And then I'll take, hey, you don't think I'm going to get rid of that good olive oil and garlic. I'm going to put that right on top of the bread. And this makes a wonderful appetizer, a fantastic entree if you wanted to just serve 1 or 2 plates of this as an entree. But naturally, just think of serving this as an appetizer. It's just fantastic. So that's it, the rosemary, garlic, shrimp, and olive oil. Very simple, very good. Now, I want to show you a couple things that we would serve these with. There's a lot of rice grown in Louisiana, and certainly in that part of the state. And what we have here is a rice casserole. The rice is put into a pan, and we use a little white sauce and garlic and chives. We put some peas and mushrooms, and then we put it into a baking pan, top it with a little flavored breadcrumbs, and bake the rice casserole. And you think there's garlic, there's vegetables, there's rice. So it's a good starch and vegetable dish. It's magnificent as a side dish, or again, just as a starch on the plate. This is my favorite, though. This is my little cookies that's made with cheesecake cookies. Take a look at this. All these wonderful little cheesecake squares, and we've got the fresh fruit all over the top of the little cookies, and again, garnished with fresh herbs for a beautiful presentation. Isn't that nice? Really great. Okay, well, Jean Owens, what a good friend of mine she is, and what does she know about herbs that she can teach me? Hey, Jean, come on in. Just talking about you. Yeah. Look at this great big old basket, huh? Isn't this nice?
Well, this is your bread that
I love this.
And
this is raisin bread, huh?
Right, and I cannot leave the garden without bringing herbs, so I thought you might use these in something.
Oh, these are great. What all do we have here?
Well, let's see. We have this for tea. This is lemon balm. This is to clean your hands with. That's the eau de cologne.
Just like lemon.
And then I brought some chives and some and a special little mint that's, I call it double mint. Somebody gave it to me. I don't even know the name of it.
You know, until someone actually mashes herbs between their fingers and smelling it, I mean, you've never had the fresh flavor of food. What great flavor. Well, thank you so much. Hey, I know what I'm going to do with these. I really appreciate it. Well, it's great to have you visiting with us
today. It smells wonderful.
Well, we did a little Osso Buco, a little garlic shrimp. You smell all those herbs in there.
Bay leaf and stuff.
Last time I was visiting with you over at Ridgeway, how's your mother?
She's fine. Well, she's sleeping in this morning.
Well, great. She needs to rest after working.
Well, she works all the time.
When I was visiting with you last, we were lucky enough to get some good shots of the herb garden and some of the scenery, and I want to share it with the viewers, and I want you to tell us exactly what we're looking at as we look at Ridgeway Gardens here.
Oh, okay. Well, we're just driving up to Ridgeway Gardens. The sign does show up. Sometimes people don't know where we are. We're out in the sticks, kind of, at Fishville. It's called Fishville Community. It's not really a town. That's kind of down through toward the ravine, and the garden is just kind of not formal like some herb gardens. It's kind of just part of the landscape.
Right.
And that's yarrow. You find that growing in the ditches, and that's a beautiful parsley right there. And there we are. I think we're talking about the bay tree there.
Yeah, I tell you, I love bay. Look how nice it is right in the front.
Well, we think that's a real special bay. And it's, you know, they grow so slow. We rob it all the time. I mean, every day we take something from it. And I guess we're just pointing out Lad's Love, I think,
is
the one that you didn't.
I had never heard of it. Tell me about that.
Well, we use it instead of mothballs to protect woolens, but they used to use it in Europe to help young boys grow their beard. About the time boys get used to growing their beard, they also get interested in women, so they started calling it Maiden's Ruin. So I'll let you decide how that came about.
So you just rub it on your face?
Yeah, so I was just showing there how
It really had almost like a cologne smell to it.
Yeah, it
nice.
really is. It's a nice smell.
And this is the patio.
Yeah, that's the patio. Just go right in there, and we have a little tea room. And there we are at the tea
There's
table.
that bread.
Yeah,
There's that great raisin
it.
bread.
And there's my mom.
Oh, that's
Ernie.
funny right there. Sure.
Right, and she's always helping somebody else. So there she is, trying to take care of you, I guess.
We had a fight. You serve tea here every day, right?
Yeah, everything by appointment, because when we're not serving, we're out in the garden.
Wow, what a great place to spend an afternoon. We had a wonderful time here.
Yeah,
Oh, this is that great garlic and chive spread.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
And we're gonna do that today. I want to show our friends exactly how to do that. It's gonna be something great. And you know what this was? We did a little bit of the sweetened spread with the honey and orange, and I think I may have enough. We'll do some of that too. I want to share with everybody those great spreads that you can make with.
Well, they're so versatile. I mean, you can use it as a dip or a spread or a butter to put on vegetables, and that's the neat thing about it. You just use everything.
Oh, well, I can tell you honestly, one of the greatest afternoons I think I ever spent was walking around that herb garden, because it's so natural out there. And for the first time, I want to clear it up and get it over with. The correct pronunciation. Is it herbs or is it herbs? Let's go ahead and settle it. You're the expert.
I went through that for about 5 years, herbs or herbs. I couldn't ever make up my mind until I found, I met a lady that knew everything about herbs, and she was president of the National Herb Society at the time, and she pronounced it herb. So I made up my mind that I'm going to pronounce it herb, and if people say herb, that's okay, and if they say herb, it's okay. There's no right and wrong about it.
As long as they use them, right?
As long as you pick them and use them.
Is herbs, are herbs becoming more and more popular, not only in professional kitchens, but in private home kitchens as well?
Yeah, I don't think it's a fad. I think people thought of it as a fad, but I think it was an art that was almost lost, and now it's being recovered, and people become more and more interested in it, and there's just so much to know about it, so much to like.
Well, I want to talk about herbs, and I want to talk about the flavors of them, but we ate 2 great spreads made with herbs in your little tea room that day, and I have to share this with my viewers because, hey, I loved it. And what I have here is 2 bowls. One of the bowls has a little cream cheese in it, and I've got a few of my own little flavors, and this other one, of course, same thing. Both of them with a little cream cheese. Now, the first one I want you to make is the one that you gave me. I'll pour everything into this if you stir. This is going to be the garlic chive spread, right? Yeah. And there's a little dill in it. I want to get all of my ingredients here. Of course, this is fresh dill. Looks really nice. You can
use as much or as little as your taste allows. Right. That's the thing people always ask is how much do I use? Well, you use what you like.
Use whatever you like, sure. And this is the fresh chives, so we're going to put chives and dill, and I've got them already chopped, so you can mix them right into that, like that.
That's it.
And then I'm going to put a little garlic. You know I love garlic, right?
Do too. I do too.
I'm going to put a little garlic into it.
That's good.
And do you season it with a little salt and pepper?
I put a little salt sometimes. Depends on what I'm serving it with. If it's something salty, I don't. But
I'm going to put a little dash of my Louisiana hot sauce in there, right? A little spice. Okay, and stir that around. And is this better? Is this better if you make it overnight and just?
I don't think it has to be made overnight. I kind of like things fresh. I'd rather use more herbs and not let it stay so long.
Is fresh herbs better than dried, or do you use more? What's the formula?
Well,
there?
The formula is if it calls for a half teaspoon, I usually use a tablespoon of fresh. It's just that the oils have dehydrated in the dry, so that you have all the moisture. And in Louisiana, we have so much moisture in the leaves that you need to use more than the recipe calls for.
Right. Now, this one is going to be my favorite. I really love the chives and dill and garlic because I like garlic.
But you're used to those flavors. This is different.
Those are great. But this is a sweetened spread, and this went great with the raisin bread, and I love it. It's so simple. What we have, again, is a little bit of that cream cheese, and then I'm going to put a little touch of orange juice down into it like that, a little bit honey.
Yeah, I love that.
A little bit honey, and that's going to sweeten it up really nice.
We use as little sugar as we can. We love that honey.
And here's some orange zest right down into that, and some fresh mint. Now, of course, you could use probably, I guess, any type of fresh sweetener.
Sometimes I use 2 mints, 2 different ones. We have the one that I brought you that I said was double mint.
Right.
That seems to go with things that have a little sweetener in it, and I like to use that one. If I use lemon or a citrusy kind of base, I usually use a spearmint.
Is Is herb growing complicated? Most people would think that it's very complicated, but
It's whatever you want to make of it. If you like to complicate life, you can make it complicated. If you want to keep it simple, it's just simple. It's just pinching something that you like and putting it something you already like. So it's not, and they're not difficult to grow. They're weeds, after all.
If I had to choose 5 herbs to grow in my garden that would give me great versatility and any flavors I want, which ones would you suggest I grow?
Well, I would do rosemary just because it's my favorite. But I would probably tell people to use chives and parsley, definitely. And then you'd make a choice of rosemary or marjoram. I think those, you would have one or the other. And then dill is awfully good. And
so I guess it's what you really like. Now, you said you are open. How do people find out? You're way out in Fishville, which is about 17 miles out of
They find
Alexandria.
out in different ways, mostly word of mouth, but the Alexandria Tourist Bureau always has brochures of ours, and they can tell you our phone number, because everything's done by appointment.
And whatever's on the stove is what they're going to eat, right?
That's what you get, right? That's what you get. Well, you just have to give us a little warning, and you're fixed up.
Well, you know, when I walked out there that day and I saw the rolling hills of central Louisiana, I would never have known that was an herb farm, because everything is so natural. And sitting out on that deck and looking over the landscape of Louisiana, I didn't want to leave, and I could only imagine what it would be like with a little rain dropping out there. And hey,
well,
I've got
when I left, the rain was dropping.
Why don't you
beautiful.
put a little bit of that spread on there?
Which one?
And I'm going to go either one. Just go ahead and put either one of them on there. I want a little taste, and I would let this sit in the refrigerator probably overnight to pick up more of the great flavor.
I think that's a good idea.
Jean, thank you so much for coming and sharing everything with us today. I really appreciate it. I'm coming to spend the day with you.
Oh, do it.
And hey, I want y'all to come back and spend the day with me as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. Thank you so much.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
This is PBS.
The companion cookbook to A Taste of Louisiana is available for $22.95. The Evolution of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse features recipes and food history behind Louisiana's cuisine. This 352-page cookbook contains over 250 recipes, including those from this show. To order, call 1-800-973-7246 or write to the address on your screen.